What's up, guys? Welcome in, Bears fans, with another edition of Bear Report post-game podcast. We've got Usayd Koshul, Zack Pearson, and Andrew Freeman here. The Bears lost in thrilling fashion to the Minnesota Vikings by a total of 7 points on the road, losing 29-22 in a game that was once again a tale of two halves. But how we doing today, guys? And what's going on? What are your thoughts after this Bears loss?
Tough one. That was hard. It looked like in the first half it was just going to be a complete blowout. Like Kirk Cousins started 17 of 17. They got pretty much anything they wanted. They were biting on the play fakes, the boot again. Justin Jefferson was going crazy. But, I mean, this team, second half, they came out. You got to give them credit. Like, right before the first half, they came out, firing. They should have won the game. I'm not a fan of moral victories, but I think it is a moral victory. I think when you look at it, the biggest thing is the progression of some of these players, including Justin Fields. And I think we can walk away today saying Justin Fields had a pretty good game, his probably best game of the season. And, it wasn't all negative. It wasn't all bad, despite them falling to 2-3.
Yeah, honestly, I feel pretty good about this one. Like, is it weird that I feel better about this game than I did about the Houston Texans win or the 49ers win, if that makes sense? Because it's like, at the end of the day, like, what's the important things that you want to see this year? You want to see this team, coached well. You want to see this team fight hard and be competitive against teams that are above their weight class, so to speak. And more importantly, you want to see Justin Fields go out there and play well. And lo and behold, like, this is the first game that I actually thought that Justin Fields went out there and played legitimately like a very good game from him. There were some rough spots in the first half, like you said, Zach, but I mean, the second half, he was money. He was making a ton of throws. I think I saw a stat out there. He was 12 of 13 in the second half. This is his first game going over 200 yards passing this year, which, I mean, it's a low bar, considering the rest of his performances this year. But yeah, he looked really good. He had a touchdown that got called back due to a penalty that was just an amazing athletic play. And, the Bears, they came back. It looked like they were dead in the water early in this game. I think we all thought this was going to be a blowout after those first few drives where the Vikings just marched down the field. The offense wasn't doing anything, and it just looked like, the Bears better pack it up and, go home from this one. But, yeah, it was an exciting second half, to say the least. And I think the best thing that we saw from this was that Justin Fields took a giant step forward in this one, and that just gives us a little bit of a positive outlook for him moving forward, because it has certainly been a little bit negative for him in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it certainly has been negative. And I think, my general takeaways in this game were just the simple fact that, like, Justin looked much better, which we'll get right into. But ultimately, there were a lot of bright spots, right? You talk about Kyler Gordon kind of being inconsistent in the first half. And I thought that third and fourth quarter, Kyler Gordon came along really well in terms of just tackling and holding up in coverage. The run game today wasn't great by any means. I mean, David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert combined for 31 rushing yards. Justin Fields had more rushing yards than both of them combined. But then also, I think, the wide receivers did get more involved. Now, I still have an issue with the Bears wide receivers simply because Darnell Mooney had that one highlight reel play, but then a couple plays before that, Dante Pettis had that wide open drop in the first quarter, I believe it was. And, those are the things that absolutely kill you, because you're an offense that I think is trying to find consistency. You're trying to find momentum. You're a passing offense that right now is, quite frankly, one of the worst in the NFL. But also, there was a lot of good progress today in terms of that. So for me, my general takeaway is was today the scoreboard indicated that the Bears lost, but today was still a major W for the Bears because the offense played much better. And I was saying this consistently on Twitter throughout the game in terms of look, at the end of the day, people are going to focus on the win-loss record, but really what matters this year is not even the performance of the defense, not necessarily the performance of the special teams, but just what this offense does week to week, because it is a pass-driven league, and your future is not the defense or the special teams, it's the offense.
Well, here's the thing. They pretty much gave Justin Fields a bunch of guys who are probably not going to be on many rosters in the NFL. That's what happens when you sign fringe roster players. You go bargain bin shopping, and nothing against them. I'm sure they're all nice players and nice guys, but Dante Pettis dropped 2 passes today. Amir Smith-Marset had whether it was a penalty or not, whatever, he had a block in the back call that wiped away a touchdown. And it's something he didn't even have to do. Just play the sideline. And then later on in the game, he doesn't play the sideline and he fumbles and gets stripped. So that's kind of what happens. I mean, they signed Byron Pringle, they signed Q St. Brown, they signed Dante Pettis, they signed Smith-Marset, they signed a bunch of guys that at best, what you're looking at like Pringle and St. Brown as 3rd or 4th guys on other NFL rosters at best. So it is what it is. I mean, they literally did not do much. Thankfully, Velus Jones had the one, touchdown pass. But still, I mean, they got no one outside of Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this ad nauseum here, so I don't want to get too much into that. But I think what we've seen in the past few weeks, where it felt like Justin Fields wasn't doing his part, where you did see some guys open, and the pass protection isn't great, but there were plays where he did get enough time to scan the field and see open receivers, and he wasn't holding his end of the bargain. Today, it felt like the exact opposite, where it felt like, I didn't think the pass blocking was too bad or too rough in this game. It was definitely better than what we've seen in the past, but it definitely felt like Justin Fields got let down by his receivers quite a bit in this game. And, that was something that I think we all expected going into this year, because, I mean, like you said, Zach, when your only 2 major acquisitions in the offseason on offense are Byron Pringle and Lucas Patrick, and I guess when you look at the draft, Velus Jones, what are you really expecting here when it was already a pretty bad unit before those signings were made? So, again, it was tough from watching that aspect of things. But again, from a macro level here, I mean, this is some of the things you want to see from Fields in terms of, I think, taking that step forward. It didn't look like he was holding onto the ball as much in this game. It looked like he was getting through his reads a little bit faster, a little bit more decisive in this one. So if you want to touch on Justin Fields' performance, I thought, this was a giant positive, but yeah, it was definitely a giant L from all the receivers in this one, besides like Mooney, because just not enough here from those guys. And I think that was a huge difference in the outcome of this game.
And, looking at Justin's performance in this game, look at the first 3 weeks, for example, right? You're talking about a quarterback that we said was playing with no confidence. He wasn't throwing the ball. He was holding on to it long because the O-line pass pro was completely shaky. You also had wide receivers that could get no separation. And some of that stuff, I'm not even gonna lie, did pop up today. But also, I think what matters more than anything is the simple fact that Justin played much better today, and that itself is a major development for the Bears. You're talking about a QB who's getting more confident. He's developing that chemistry and that rhythm with Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy, as well as the rest of the coaching staff. He's willing to basically let loose, not be conservative, and say, yeah, you know what? I may throw an interception here or there, but it's not a big deal because it's all part of the learning process. I thought Justin's reads were much better today. I think that he's still figuring out in terms of that chemistry with Darnell Mooney as well as the other receivers, but overall he just seems to be playing with a new confidence around him that we didn't see the first 3 weeks of the game. Now, I want to touch on the chemistry with Darnell Mooney. I think that going into this year, right, especially when we were at training camp and we had kind of heard, oh yeah, Justin and Mooney have been working out at Hallis Hall and they linked up in Atlanta at some point during the off season to kind of go ahead and develop chemistry. Everyone on social media was getting hype, and deservedly so, because I think that is still a QB wide receiver duo that has the chance to be one of the top ones in Bears history. But also, I think what matters is that no one really accounted for the fact that those guys were just practicing at practice speed. And when it comes to game speed, it's a completely different animal. Like that first shot that Justin had to the end zone, they're actually 2 back-to-back plays, right? Where Justin was trying to target Mooney. The first play was a go route, and Mooney gets held up and PI by Patrick Peterson. Second play, it was 100% on Mooney, I thought, because he ran the right route, was open. Justin made the right read, but unfortunately, Mooney didn't get his head turned back quickly enough to really be able to secure, locate, and then be able to track the ball. So I think that it's those instances where you're like, okay, Justin's gotten much better, but then again, he's still got an incredibly long way to go. And if you look at his stat line, I mean, he was 15 for 21, 208 yards, 18.8 passer rating, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. That's still progress compared to where we were on September 11th.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You want the progress. You want to see games like this, but now he's got to stack them. They got to be consistent. And they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more now because the running game has not looked good the past 2 weeks. They got David Montgomery back. Outside of a couple runs, it was pretty blah in my eyes. There's still a lot of issues I have with this team, and I think it just goes back to it's a rebuild. It's a lack of talent. Like, you look at the offensive line, Sam Mustipher was getting beat bad again today. I didn't think Larry Borum had a good day at first look. Tevin Jenkins had a penalty. Overall, he was probably pretty decent. Braxton Jones is still a 5th-round pick out there. It's going to happen, but they just don't have the talent on offense. And defensively, I mean, the secondary second half played pretty well, except for that final drive. It just kind of felt like that Tampa 2 style defense, just letting everything underneath you kind of burn them a little bit. They weren't getting a pass rush on that drive. They were playing 5-6 yards cushion off of the wide receivers on like 2nd and 4, 3rd and 4 situations, and it burned them. But yeah, I mean, overall, Justin Fields, you want the progress. You want him to now to stack these days, stack these practices and games consistently, and then you can open up things more. I was happy they opened up the passing game today. That was one of my big things. Just let him throw the ball. I mean, if he throws 15 interceptions, whatever, let him throw the ball. That's all we're asking for.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that the run game was going to be like what they were doing, especially we look at the first 3 weeks of the season. Like, we knew that wasn't going to be sustainable, especially when we look at that Texans game where they ran for 284 yards in that one. Like, we knew that was going to come back down to earth at some point, and that they were going to have to lean on Justin a little bit more as the season was going to go on. And we saw that. I mean, the last 2 weeks, the run game has not nearly been as efficient as it has been. And I think that's just the nature of you're such a run-heavy team. Like, teams are going to key in on that. And I thought the Vikings, their defense did a really good job of really keying into that. It seemed like every single time there was a first down, like the Vikings were run blitzing it every single time. And I mean, we saw that, play out multiple times in this game where there was just nothing there for David Montgomery or Khalil Herbert. Like, it happened so many times in this one. But the one positive I say on that is that I think that Luke Getsy kind of recognized that. And I like that the first couple of drives, they came out throwing the ball, and they were, I wouldn't say aggressive throwing it, but they were letting Justin Fields make plays in the passing game a little bit more early on to get him in a rhythm a little bit and get things easy for him. And, it wasn't perfect. Like, the first half, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was pretty rough at times. Like, Justin Fields only had 3 completions in the first half. It was not like a great passing performance by him by any means. Like, other than the Darnell Mooney catch late on that last drive of the first half that led to the touchdown, like, there wasn't a ton of positives from a passing game perspective, other than it seemed like they were a lot more cognizant of that they needed to get Justin Fields in this passing game in a little bit of a rhythm first before just running the ball down the Vikings' throat. And I mean, there were a couple of miscommunications. This one, I thought it was a pretty messy first half from the offense. Like, when you come out in the first play and Kari Blossomgame doesn't even know he's supposed to be on the field, that's pretty rough, a rough start right there.
They had penalty in their second drive, the first play too.
Right. So it was just a lot of sloppy play. Like, there were a couple of miscommunications between Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney. Like, it was not a pretty first half. And I think the second half really overshadows that. But like we said, they were able to bounce back from that and make it a competitive second half. And we saw things start to come together for them a little bit. So you like that they were able to bounce back and put things together. But like Zach alluded to a little bit earlier, they need to start stacking these game by game now and not just have this be a flash in the pan in the second half, because at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a consistent theme now where this run game has regressed back to the mean. I don't think they're going to be able to rely on it like they have done the first few weeks. They're going to have to rely more on Justin Fields in this passing game. Can they start putting together more consistent performances there? I think only time will tell from that standpoint.
And one of the things the Bears have stacked this year is scoring on that first possession, be it touchdown or be it field goal. You look at week 1, the Bears did not score in the first half at all, not even the first possession of the game. And then week 2, they marched down the field and Green Bay score a touchdown, right? And then weeks 3, 4, and 5, they marched down the field and score a field goal. Now, I still consider that progress because, again, when you kind of turn back the clock and you look here in Chicago, like, this is the first time I can remember a team marching down the field and at least putting something on the board to kind of gain some sort of consistency and confidence. But then again, that's also been offset by the simple fact that it's like the Bears march down the field and they get a field goal or a touchdown. They score on their first possession. And then what happens is the next couple possessions right after that are just absolute dumpster fires. You look at the case in week 5. I mean, this game, the Bears score a field goal and then go 2 straight 3-and-outs, right? And then you score 3 straight possessions after that with 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. So you score 4 straight possessions. But then again, it's just like, this team's getting it, but you also wonder, okay, are they really getting it? And the reality of it is this: it's like you look at, that first field goal in the second half that the Bears had. I really think that was a drive where it should have ended up in a touchdown. You look at the final possession of the game, the Bears, I thought, were driving, but forget the Amir Smith-Marset fumble for a second to kind of wrap the game up. What really killed any sort of momentum on that drive was just that giant strip sack that Justin Fields basically had. I believe it was like the strip sack fumble, which was and all of a sudden it's like you're gaining consistency, you're gaining confidence, and then boom, what happens? It's like you get sacked and you move the ball back like 10 yards, and then you have like a 23-yard gain, I believe, to running back David Montgomery, which was a pass play. So pretty nice job there recovering. But, this offense, it's just like it's up, then it's down, it's up, and then it's down, right? And they're still trying to figure out, like, what exactly that middle ground is. And I think looking at the running game, like, the running game had its worst game of the season today, right? But the reality is this, and Andrew and I talked about this a couple weeks ago on Picks for Polls. The running game that the Bears are running, this method, like, it's not sustainable at all. But you still, I think, as an offensive coaching staff, have to figure out how do we adapt and how do we adjust, right? And I think one of the ways they could have adapted much better today was getting Khalil Herbert more involved despite having David Montgomery back.
Yeah, I mean, they could have done more to, I think, incorporate both running backs in this one. But at the end of the day, like, the Vikings were keying in on it. So, it's tough to say whether they could have gotten the run game going even more. But, I think the inconsistency is just a part of the entire process here because you're dealing with a ton of new players, a ton of guys that just aren't, they're not. Let's just face it, this isn't like the 99 Rams or anything like that on offense. This isn't the greatest throw and turf for, the cheese with Patrick Mahomes and all the weapons he had with Tyreek Hill and Kelsey. They're like not on that level by even close. So, there are going to be some growing pains and there's going to be some rough spots here. But again, the positives are that they were able to put together in the second half. They were able to show some things, and Justin Fields was able to show some things. Now, defensively, I don't know how much we're going to get into it because I think we have to touch on defense like a little bit here before we get into our individual players that sit out in this one. But defensively, like, how do we think they did in this one? Because I think the first half was a really rough defensive outing from them. Like, Justin Jefferson had like a million catches in the first half, it seemed like. But they were able to put it together in the second half a little bit, and they were able to hold the Vikings basically to nothing until late in the game. But that last drive, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I just feel like the Bears were way too conservative with like all the soft zones calls and just way 100%. too many plays where Vikings players are just running wide open in the middle of the field there.
Way too much. Like I said before, like, it's just they were given way too much soft cushion. Roquan Smith's got to make some tackles, man. Like, he looks really bad. Like, I thought he had a good game. What was it, a couple weeks ago against Houston?
Yep, against Houston.
Yeah, I mean, against the Giants, he was okay. I mean, they were biting on everything. They're missing tackles. He's got to tackle better. He's got to be better. I mean, if you want to get paid like that, man, you gotta play a lot better. You need him to show up. But yeah, like I said, I think that Tampa 2 style kind of bit them. Like, I mean, it just I don't know. It was kind of a tale of two halves, essentially, for the defense. Like we said, I mean, they were giving up everything to Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson in the first half. And second half, they did what the defense usually does. This is the first time they given up a touchdown in the second half. They played good enough to win. The Bears offense played good enough to win. They just couldn't get the stop at the end, and they made, a key mistake at the end as well. But yeah, it was interesting because it did look like it was going to get ugly for the defense, like quick. It looked like, I mean, they just Kirk Cousins was just not going to have an incompletion or anything like that, and it was, for me in that first half, it just looked like it's could have been a complete blowout. And I said it on Twitter. I said, now this is where you look for development, you look for progression with your roster. What guys are going to stand up? It doesn't even have to be rookies or young players or the quarterback. I mean, it could be someone like Justin Jones, who I think had a big second half. Kyler Gordon kind of turned around the second half. He was inches away from what 99% probably would have been a pick six if he picks that off. I don't know why people are arguing in my mentions saying it wouldn't have been a pick six. It 100% would have been a damn pick six, like if he caught the ball. So, yeah, I mean, Jaquan Brisker was all right. We have to remember something, though. Like, the Bears have Jalen Jones. They had Kindle Vildor, who played well, had the interception. They had a young kind of secondary as well out there with Kyler Gordon. So it was no easy task. And I thought they kind of, played well in that second half. And, the 1 yard quarterback sneak, can't really do much about it. The Bears are probably be the only team in the NFL that can't get a quarterback sneak in at the goal line because they run shotgun and don't know how to do it. And then the 2-point play, like, that's Justin Jefferson. I think you got Jalen Jones. That's that. Jalen Jones. I mean, like, what are you supposed to do? He's an undrafted rookie. Like, you're going up against the best wide receiver in the NFL and one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. What are you supposed to do? So, yeah, I mean, overall, I thought the defense, the second half was better. It was just, I kind of felt like Minnesota was kind of shooting themselves in the foot a lot, not to discredit the Bears defense, but shooting themselves in the foot a lot in the second half. And eventually they're probably going to get down and try to score. So you got to turn those 2 field goals into touchdowns, and you got to be better there. Because if you get those touchdowns, the game's over. You win the game.
Let's kind of kick it right into our studs and duds segment. And, I personally think one of my studs from today, I'm going to go Darnell Mooney on this one. The easy pick is obviously Justin Fields. Now, when you look at Mooney's stats, right, I mean, he only had 2 receptions for, I believe it was 52 yards, but he had the one big, or I'm sorry, yeah, he had 2 receptions for 52 yards, including the 39-yard gain. I still think that there is a lot of progress for a guy like Darnell Mooney, because ultimately when you look at it, I mean, considering where he was last year and what he did, eclipsing over 1,000 yards against the Vikings in that Week 18 game, and then you look at where he was in terms of the start of the season and kind of the criticism he's taken, it's been very clear like he's responded really well. Now, obviously, I think the only thing that remains for Mooney is 2 things, right? Number one, he has to consistently stack these performances on top of each other. And then number 2, the big thing is, can he find the end zone and kind of become that scoring force? And, for the Bears, it's going to be very interesting to see what this team looks like, because they're playing again on Thursday night against the Washington Commanders at home.
Yeah, I'll say for my stud here, I could go with Justin Fields, because I think we talked about Justin Fields a ton in this podcast, so I don't want to go too heavily towards that direction here. But, I mean, he played an amazing game. I'm trying to think of other guys that stood out in this one. You know what? I'll say that Kindle Vildor stepped up in this one. Again, we talked about the secondary struggling, but Kindle Vildor made a great play in the second half to get that interception. I think Kindle Vildor's gotten a lot of flack from a lot of us on as Bears fans, Bears Twitter, Bears analysts, whatever. I know he's not a great cornerback by any means, and he's definitely had his fair share of struggles. He's a young guy still, so that's to be expected as like a day 3 pick. But, he's stepped up. He's looked better this year in this defense, I think, compared to last year, where he's able to keep his eyes on the quarterback a lot more. And you saw that on that interception where he kept his eyes on Kirk Cousins on that rollout the entire time. He kind of baited him into that interception, and that was a huge play for the Bears, because I think it led to the Bears getting the lead on the field goal in that next drive, if my memory's not mistaken there. But that was a good play for Kindle Vildor. I think he's shown some nice things so far this season. Like, again, has he been great? No, but he's been a lot better than I think than last year, and that was a really nice play that he made late in this game.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not really a lot of like studs in this game because it was kind of more of just like team effort. And, obviously Justin Fields is the easy one to kind of pick from. But like, I'm going to kind of go with a unique one. I think the second half Bears, probably my stud in the game just because of how they came out. And after, they cut the lead at 21-10 at halftime. I mean, if we did this podcast after the first quarter, every single one of us would have said the game would have been 35-3, 35-10, pretty much going into like the third or fourth quarter. Like it was on track to do that. So I just got to think the second half for the Bears was my stud. Even though they did give it up at the end, I mean, they fought back. They had the lead. They looked better, especially the offense. Justin Fields looked better in the second half. He was 12 of 13, 135 yards in a touchdown pass in the second half, had 36 rushing yards. Probably should have had another 52-yarder. That was a touchdown, a highlight reel. I thought it was a bad call. But yeah, I mean, I think the second half Bears were probably my stud of the day.
I mean, yeah, the second half Bears, I think, is certainly an intriguing one because, again, they did come out and have 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. Kind of flipping it over here, it's almost like it's tough to totally pick a dud, but this was a tale of 2 halves, right? But if there was going to be one specific player that I had to label as a total dud in this game, and I know that a lot of people are going to be like, whoa, okay, this was not the name we expected to hear, I would definitely say it's linebacker Roquan Smith for me. Because, yeah, he's a guy who, like, pads the stats and stuff, but then at the end of the day, what makes everything so polarizing is it's like on the one screenplay, he was right there. He should have had the tackle and then just gets completely blown off, right? And isn't able to go ahead and make the tackle. And I think what's frustrating this year is like Roquan Smith kind of went through this offseason where he was at camp, he was present, but he was all holding in and he was in good spirits. And then when we finally got a chance to hear from him on like the one Saturday afternoon, I think it was in camp, his whole thing was, well, I'm going to go ahead and kind of bet against myself here. And you do really wonder, okay, maybe, just maybe, Roquan Smith does not necessarily fit what this team is looking for in a 4-3 will linebacker, but also is he a player that, this coaching staff can legitimately build around? Because stats are great, but Roquan Smith has not kind of had the impact I think a lot of people hoped he would. And again, he had ups and downs in this game, but I still think that he just hasn't been as good as he's advertised himself to be, and the way that a lot of people have thought he was going to come in and perform.
Yeah, Roquan, I was mostly in his camp during the whole contract fiasco that happened during training camp. For the most part, there were some parts of that negotiation as well that I thought was pretty bad on Roquan's part, but I don't want to get into that too much. But yeah, he hasn't played like that 20 million linebacker that I think he wants to be. So far this season, like other than that Texans game, like you said, just the impact isn't really there. He's still racking up the tackles, but he's just not making too many game-changing plays at this point. So you need to see more from him moving forward. For my dud, I have to do it. Ihmir Smith-Marsette, man. Like, it's tough to say the guy was the reason why your team lost, just one guy, because there were so many reasons why the Bears lost this game. Like from the slow first half to, the defense letting the Vikings drive down the field in the second half, there are a lot of reasons why the Bears lost this game. But 2 key plays in this one really were deciding factors in this one. And that was the Justin Fields scramble for a touchdown being called back because of the Ihmir Smith-Marsette block in the back. And then that final fumble on that final drive, which, the Bears had some momentum going. We talked about the sack earlier where Justin Fields, got that forced fumble. They were able to fall on it. And you're thinking, all the momentum's lost. But then David Montgomery comes back with that, really nice play to get a huge chunker. And you're like, okay, now the Bears are back in business. Now they just need to get, a couple more plays here. They got, definitely had a lot of time to get down there and get a touchdown. And then Ihmir Smith-Marsette, man, situational awareness just get out of bounds. That's really what it comes down to. Like, I mean, he did get bodied by Cameron Dantzler to take the ball away from him, basically. But at the same time, it's like the problem with the play was that he didn't get out of bounds right away. That's what he should have done. You just got to know, like, it's 2-minute drill. I don't think they had any timeouts left. Like, get the ball, get out of bounds. If they did have timeouts, like one timeout or something like that, like, I'm not sure, but get the ball, get out of bounds. And again, it's just one of those where you kind of saw it coming in the moment when it happened. And it's like one of those, like, it's like watching a car crash where it's like you're seeing it in real time. It's like, oh no, don't do it, don't do it. And did not work out well for them. So I'd say it's tough because he hasn't been able to get on the field a lot this season. I know this was kind of a revenge game for Ihmir Smith-Marsette since he was drafted by the Vikings, playing against the Vikings, which is pretty cool for him at the start. But yeah, that was a rough ending to the game, and just one of those things where a young player, you just got to do the smart thing there and get out of bounds on that last play.
Yeah, I mean, those were probably the two, not obvious, but those were two biggest ones. I'm going to go a little different here. I'm going to go myself. I'm a dud for picking the Jacksonville Jaguars in my survivor pool. Never again. Saving the Buffalo Bills till Thanksgiving does not work. Also, I think the first half Bears defense, that's my dud. The first quarter, that was terrible. What could have been if they just made one stop on one of those drives, because it was just way too easy for Kirk Cousins. On the flip side, though, like, they made adjustments and they played a lot better. So yeah, I'll go with the first half defense as kind of my dud. An NFL dud. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Did you see the play in the Falcons-Bucks game with a 3rd and 4? Tom Brady drops back, gets sacked by Grady Jarrett. Okay, tackles him, and he's bringing him to the ground. And they called roughing the passer because he rolled over.
Disgusting.
That
disgusting call.
That is absolutely
hated it.
Ridiculous. I know it has nothing to do with the Bears. That is absolutely ridiculous. Like, that might be the worst call I've seen.
That's
one
of those. All the time. That's one of those where it's Tom Brady and he's getting it called. Oh my gosh! I watched that and I was like, nope, that's not roughing the passer. Not even close. But yeah, no, NFL officiating, not their brightest moment. For sure.
Definitely wasn't their brightest moment. The Bears had a number of bright moments on Sunday afternoon, a number of moments that also kind of made you want to throw something at your TV. But I think when we look at it here, guys, I mean, we are looking ahead now to week 6 against the Washington Commanders, but just what are some closing thoughts for you guys from week 5? Because for me, I think what it comes down to ultimately is that in this game, I mean, the Bears showed once they put it all together, and I think that it is going to come later in the year, but once they put it all together, this could very well be a incredibly fun team to watch, despite the win-loss record. Because I think this year what the Bears are showing us is, like, forget the win-loss record. Now we're just focused on finding the right football players to fit for the team and the vision moving forward.
Yeah, I'd say in terms of if you're just looking at this season, like, this is a tough loss to take, just because they fought all the way back. They had the lead late. They had a chance to go down there and tie the game on that final drive, and just to end like that, it's a tough one to take. But if you're looking at the bigger picture here, this was an elite. I told you this out. This was an elite rebuilding tank loss for the Bears, because you saw the things you wanted to see in terms of young guys stepping up. You saw Justin Fields playing well. You saw them playing competitive for the most part. And they lost the game and got better draft position because of it. Like, I hate to be that guy, but if you're like me, I don't really care what the wins and losses this year. Like, there are a few things I'm looking for this year. I want to see Justin Fields play good. I want to see that this team is well coached. I want to see some young guys step up and some guys that they can build around to be a foundation moving forward. Those are the things that I'm concerned about. If you're looking at this season through that mindset, I think there's a lot to like from this game. And that's a good thing, because it looked like it was going to be a rough one early on in this one. So the fact that we're talking about this in such a positive light compared to, I'd say, like, the first half hour I'm watching this game and it's just like a train wreck that I can't look away from for all that time, definitely feel a lot better about that than what we got in that first half. So I'd say just, while they lost here, there are definitely a lot to build off of here, and we'll see how they do on Thursday night, because short week, and anything can happen on those Thursday night games. We know those can get pretty wacky.
Yeah, you just don't know which Carson Wentz is going to show up either. It's crazy. Yeah, no, I agree. I everything Andrew said. It's just I agree. It's a loss, but that's what you want to see in losses: development from players. And I think the best case for the Bears this year is to get into the top 5. Top 10 wouldn't be bad also, but also Justin Fields shows development, shows he can be a guy to run your offense, and you can go out and spend money and get him some weapons next year. So yeah, I mean, it's a loss. It sucks. It's hard. The players are not going out there trying to lose or anything like that. But you saw some development in some of these guys. Fields. You saw Kyler Gordon. I thought played a better game today. Jaquan Brisker looked pretty decent out there. You just want to see the development in these guys, and I think we saw that today despite the loss.
I agree with you guys. I think that this is going to be a game the Bears kind of look back at this season, and I think even next offseason, when we're kind of sitting here talking about the state of this team and just where they're at, right, and kind of bright moments, we're going to look at this Week 5 loss to the Vikings as being the one where they were down 21-3, scored 19 unanswered points, shut the Vikings out in the third quarter, and then kind of went all the way down to the wire. So it's definitely one of those where there was a lot more progress made than people are going to give the Bears credit for it, because the scoreboard and win-loss record indicate the Bears lost. But at the end of the day, I think the Bears still came away with a lot of W's here. But that's going to do it from us. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Bear Report. Check out the Picks for Polls podcast as well. We drop that on Friday mornings typically. You can check out all our post-game coverage on the Bear Report website, and then you can follow myself, Andrew, and Zach on Twitter at Usayd Koshul, at AJ Freeman 25, and at Zack_Pearson. That's ZACK_Pearson. We'll be back in a couple days here looking ahead to Week 6, but for now, Bears fans, bear down and enjoy whatever is left of this Sunday as the Bears get ready for the Washington Commanders on Thursday Night Football. But peace out for now.